Hello everyone and welcome back home to Rivervale. This is Garlic and today we're going to take a look at 5 ways to make combat interesting in D&D. So let's get right into it. The first thing you can do to make combat interesting is to change the battlefield. And I'm not just talking about minor changes here, I'm talking about really major stuff like a bridge collapsing or fire spreading or visibility changing. What this accomplishes is that it forces the players to adapt to a new situation where the tactics of the previous round no longer work. And an example of this is the bridge fight. So the party is trying to cross the chasm through a rope bridge. They are stopped by enemies in the middle of the bridge and a fight breaks out. In round 2, because of the fight, the bridge starts to sway, imposing dex save from everyone to avoid falling, or maybe not falling right away, but just hanging off the ropes of the bridge. And then in round 3, one of the enemies cuts the ropes of the bridge on the other side, and the bridge along with everyone on it pendulates to one side and crashes on the wall. So the battlefield has now become vertical as people are holding on the bridge while still fighting and also trying to knock their enemies off, or it might even become a truce as everyone might agree to help each other get back on top. The next thing we can do is to have enemies have a goal other than fighting. So the enemies will take actions to accomplish that goal instead of attacking the players. Then the players can still try to drop the enemies in order to stop their plan, but the challenge will be designed in a way where if the players only attack, the enemies will succeed. An example of this is the MacGuffin. So, the enemies are trying to steal an item that the party possesses. This means that the enemies are not striking at the party with every available action, but instead will actively try to grapple, overpower, or use sleight of hand to take the item. When they manage to take it, they will try to escape with it. If an enemy doesn't have a clear path to safety, they might just throw the item to one of their allies so that that enemy can escape. And so the fight turns into a challenge of acquisition, where the party and the enemies are both attacking each other but also constantly trying to take the item from each other and escape with it. Alternatively, the party might need to take an item from enemies who are trying to escape instead of fight. So you don't have to start with the party having the item, you can start the same encounter with the enemies having the item at the beginning. The third thing we can do is to create something that must be stopped immediately. So the enemies are working towards a goal that is equivalent to them winning this conflict. They must be stopped from accomplishing that goal in multiple occasions during the fight. An important note here is that to stop the party from just trying to drop the enemies instead of actively stopping them, we must make the enemy's success accomplishable within a single round. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. The first one is the ritual. So the enemies are in the middle of a ritual, a very classic scenario. Each round, one or more of them are chanting the words of the ritual. If the person chanting the ritual is dealt damage, they will roll a concentration check, and if they fail, the ritual has been stopped for that round. If at the end of the round there are enemies still chanting, then the ritual has succeeded. And if all enemies chanting have lost their concentration, different enemies will start chanting on the next round. So you can have for the first round an enemy chanting right here, but then on the next one, the furthest away enemy will start chanting, and that one on the other side of the battlefield, then one in the middle and one on the back. And so by having different enemies chanting each round, then the players must stop and attack that specific enemy, that specific round, and they must do so with everything they've got, or the ritual immediately succeeds. Another example of this is the alarm bell, a very classic scenario also. The party has infiltrated a keep. A fight breaks out when they are discovered, and the guards will fight the players, but one or more of them will be given the order to sound the alarm. So most of the enemies will keep fighting, but then a couple of them will just run to ring the alarm bell. If one of the enemies manages to get to the alarm bell, then the entire keep is notified that there's been a breach. In both examples, the fight has an immediate goal in every round in addition to the overall goal of winning the fight. Another thing we can do is to create something that must be protected. The players must protect their person or place and must not allow the enemies to reach that point. The enemies appear a bit further away, giving the players one round to prepare, and if the enemies reach the goalpost, then the fight is lost. Players must find ways to interact with the environment in order to block the enemies' passage. The party still wants to drop the enemies, but the priority is to stop them from reaching the goalpost. An example of this is protecting the prince. So, the party is accompanying the young prince. The prince is a child and unable to defend itself. They are passing through an intersection in a back alley when assassins appear in all 4 directions. The prince will drop in a single hit if the assassins get to him. So, the environment has things like clothes hanging from ropes, a barrel that can be knocked over to block a path, a pool of flammable oil from a nearby workshop, and a lamppost with a candle inside. Each alleyway requires 2 people standing side by side to block it, so a 4-person party, for example, can only block 2 passageways and not all 4 of them. In this case, the party must resort to very clever tactics in order to successfully manage to block the enemy's path, preventing them from accomplishing their goal, and they have to be doing that every single turn. The fifth and final idea for this video is to have more than two sides to the conflict. So, usually a fight is just the party and an enemy force battling each other. But what if we introduce a third or even fourth group? All groups are enemies to each other, no two groups are currently working together, and the enemy groups do not have a clear leader who, if charmed, could sway the entire group to side with the party. They could still have a leader, but you have to create a situation in which charming one person will not affect the entire group they are representing. An example of this is Standoff at the Manor. Now this is a bit more complicated, so bear with me. So the local lord is a tyrannical ruler who forced his people into poverty and has also banished local witches after his wife, who was a witch, left him. The witches are hiding in town. After the lord discovers and burns a witch, the witches of the area have set out to kill him and claim the town. The impoverished people have also formed a criminal rebel guild, and they want to take out the lord and also take control of the town. The players were tasked to find an evil spirit, and they discover that the evil spirit has possessed the lord. Both enemy groups, witches and rebels, arrive at the manor at the same time. The witches and rebels both want to kill the lord, yes, but they also both want to take the town, which makes them enemies to each other. The party wants to exorcise the spirit, but they cannot do that if the lord dies. The party also doesn't know if the lord is evil on his own or if it was the spirit's influence. And when the party arrives at the manor, the two enemy groups are already fighting each other and the lord. Now this creates for a very interesting and complicated climactic encounter where there are multiple goals happening all at the same time. Two groups fighting against the lord and against each other, the lord being possessed and therefore potentially more powerful than just a normal person, and the party want to get to the lord while maybe stopping the other two groups, or maybe they want to ally with one or more of them, but it's not easy to do any of those things, and the situation is generally very complicated, which will make for a very interesting encounter. So, that's it for today, you guys. Let me know in the comments if you've used or experienced similar tricks at your tables. But for now, thank you very much for watching and being with me until the end. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and see you in the next one. Have a great day.